Hello everyone! Today I have here two new Joy-Con models from Mobapad. These are the S1 Joy-Cons. The S version that has normal rumble motors, and the HD version with HD rumble. And that is basically the only difference between those models. The unboxing is very simple. There is a registration card, I suppose. And here's the manual. Here's the right Joy-Con. And here's the left side. Compared to the original Joy-Cons, the S1 is slightly bulkier. It is a middle term between the M6 and the original Joy-Cons. The buttons have rubber membranes, and they don't sink flat with the shell. The analog stick's shaft is made of plastic, and it has anti-friction rings. There is no internal restrictor gate, so the sticks will touch the edges. And the menu buttons, shoulder buttons, and triggers all have mechanical switches. In this model, you have no back buttons. It has SL and SR buttons, so you can use it sideways like this, and I have to say it still feels pretty comfortable. The Dpad also uses rubber membranes, and it has a nice pivot in the center. The extra bulkiness of these Joy-Cons also makes them much more comfortable to hold. But to me, the comfort champion is still the M6, especially because it also has back buttons. Here's a comparison between the two. When testing the tension of the sticks, I noticed that the tension is very high, between 70 and 75 grams force. And this makes it very hard to move the stick out of the center position. And you can even notice in the video how the stick kinda jams in the center. This extra tension makes it a bit annoying when you're trying to make subtle movements with a stick. Especially when you compare it to the M6, you'll notice that not only the tension is lower, but you can make subtle movements easier. Testing on the dock, it is perfectly dockable with these joycons. And the kickstand is not usable, but the switch won't fall with these joycons attached. It kinda looks like that toy that bounces back. If you know the name of this toy, leave it in the comments. Testing on the Switch, it has motion controls, and the precision is pretty good. The gear button is used to activate turbo. And you also have a toggle function. The turbo speed can be adjusted, and it can read Amiibos too. This model is still compatible with the Mobapad app. And in the app, you can make firmware updates and configure the button settings. Here you can change the stick dead zones, and also the stick curves. Enable turbo for the buttons, and remap any button on the go. And here you can change the vibration settings. I also tested it with a D1 adapter. But unfortunately, the circularity is messed up. If you enable the calibration mode on the controller, you'll notice here that the circularity is reaching the full range. But after finishing the calibration, the circularity will be messed up again. So you can kinda play with both joycons if you enable calibration in both of them, but it's not ideal. Fortunately, on the Nintendo Switch, the calibration is perfectly normal. There is a little bit of pull towards the center in the X and Y axis. And the center dead zone is pretty small. Testing the D-pad, the diagonals are not easy to hit by holding only on one direction. And in general, the diagonals are not that good. It is very inconsistent and any minor movements to the left or right will make you lose the input. On the teardown, I will disassemble one side of each version. Starting with the non-HD version, here we have the battery with 500 mAh and the stick module, which is Hall effect. Here we can see the non-HD rumble motor and the switch for the trigger. Here's a closer look at the analog stick module. It is from K-Silver and it's on a separate board, which makes it super easy to replace them. Here we can see the coil for reading the Amiibos and the front of the board. Here's the liquid silicone membrane of the face buttons. And speaking about the trigger, there is no metal pivot here. It's entirely made of plastic. And the spring is made of metal, which makes me a bit concerned. Usually with repetitive movements, a metal spring can cut through a plastic pivot, rendering the trigger useless. This happens a lot with PlayStation 4 controllers. But I cannot say for sure if this will happen here or not. After all, these triggers are digital and the button barely moves. And finally, here's the other side, and you can see the HD rumble motor. And the rest of the construction is pretty similar. And now for my final thoughts. The S1 Joy-Con is a middle term between the M6 and the original Joy-Cons. They are comfortable, has Hall effect sticks, turbo, a smartphone app, and HD rumble on the HD version. And the biggest cons with this model is that the sticks has a high tension. That extra tension can be a bit annoying when aiming in shooting games. And the Dpad is not very good too. I only recommend it if you don't care much about these cons. And overall, I still think that the M6 is the best version. And that's it for today's video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.